In 1923, a group of the richest men in America met at a hotel in Chicago. Between them, they controlled more wealth than the entire United States Treasury. Steel magnates, railroad barons, the president of the largest gas company in the world, a member of the president's own cabinet. 25 years later, most of them had nothing left. One died in prison. One died broke in a rented room. One took his own life after losing everything. They had the money. What they didn't have were the rules that keep money from disappearing. And that's the part nobody talks about, because everyone wants to know how to get rich, but almost nobody studies how the wealthy actually stay that way, generation after generation, market crash after market crash, recession after recession. So today we're breaking down the 7 rules that separate people who get rich once from people who stay rich forever. And rule number 4 is the one that ruins more inheritances than bad investments ever do. Let's start with rule 1. They don't work for money, they build systems that work without them. The average person trades hours for dollars their entire life. Get up, go to a job, get paid for the time you gave away, repeat until retirement. But every wealthy family, whether it's the Waltons in Arkansas or a small business owner who quietly built a 7-figure net worth, made the same shift at some point. They stopped asking, how much can I earn, and started asking, what can I own that earns without me? A rental property earns while you sleep. A stock portfolio earns while you're on vacation. A business with real systems and real employees earns whether you show up or not. Think about the difference between a doctor and the hospital that employs 100 doctors. The doctor's income stops the moment they stop seeing patients. The hospital's income keeps flowing whether any single doctor shows up or not, because it isn't built around one person's hours, it's built around a system. That's the exact shift that happens inside every family that keeps wealth for more than one lifetime. This isn't about working less. Most wealthy people work incredibly hard, often harder than anyone around them. It's about making sure the hard work builds something that outlives the hours you put into it, something that keeps paying you long after the effort stopped. Rule 2. They treat debt like fire, useful when controlled, catastrophic when not. Here's the mistake almost everyone makes. They hear that rich people use debt to get rich, and they take that as permission to finance a car, a vacation, a closet full of things that lose value the moment you buy them. But that's not what the wealthy actually do. They separate debt into 2 categories in their head, and they never confuse the 2. There's debt that buys you an asset that pays you back, a rental property, a business loan, a mortgage on a home in a market that's appreciating. And there's debt that buys you something that just disappears in value the second you drive it off the lot or swipe the card. According to Federal Reserve data, the average American household carries thousands of dollars in credit card debt at interest rates that can climb past 20% a year. That's not leverage. That's a hole you're digging while telling yourself you're building something. Meanwhile, the same wealthy families who use debt aggressively for real estate or business expansion are often the most conservative people you'll ever meet when it comes to consumer purchases. They'll take out a mortgage on an apartment building without blinking, then spend 20 minutes deciding whether a purchase for the kitchen is really necessary. The pattern isn't avoid debt or use debt freely. It's knowing exactly which kind you're holding at any given moment and never letting the 2 get mixed up in your head. Rule 3. They pay themselves first before a single bill gets touched. This sounds almost too simple to matter, but it might be the single most repeated habit across every wealthy family ever studied. The moment income arrives, before rent, before groceries, before anything else, a percentage moves into savings or investments first. It's automatic. It's non-negotiable. The average person does the opposite. They pay every bill, every subscription, every impulse purchase, and if there's anything left at the end of the month, that's what gets saved. For most households, that leftover number is 0. Financial research consistently shows that a meaningful share of American workers say they'd struggle to cover an unexpected $400 expense. That's not an income problem for most of them. It's an order of operations problem. Pay yourself last, and there's never anything left. Pay yourself first, and you never notice it's gone. There's a reason this rule shows up in nearly every book ever written about personal finance. going back almost a century. It's not a trick or a hack. It's a structural change to how money flows through your life, and structural changes are the only kind that actually survive a bad month, a job loss, or a moment of temptation. Rule 4. The one that ruins more inheritances than bad investments. They teach money before they hand over money. There's a well-documented pattern in wealth research, often summarized as shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations. The first generation builds the fortune through sacrifice and risk. The second generation, having watched that struggle firsthand, manages to preserve most of it. The third generation, having never seen the struggle at all, loses it. Studies on family wealth transfer suggest a majority of wealthy families lose their fortune by the end of the second generation, and the number climbs even higher by the third. Think about what that actually means. It means watching your parents struggle is, statistically, more valuable to your financial future than inheriting their money. The families that break this cycle do one specific thing differently. They don't just leave money behind. They spend years teaching the next generation how money actually works, what risk means, what enough looks like before that money ever changes hands. Some families go as far as requiring young adults to work ordinary jobs before they're allowed access to any family wealth, specifically so they understand the value of a dollar earned versus a dollar given. Money without financial education isn't a gift. It's a countdown, and the clock starts the moment the money arrives. Rule 5. They let boring investments do the heavy lifting instead of chasing excitement. This one fights against human nature because boring doesn't feel like wealth building. Watching an index fund slowly compound over 20 years doesn't give you the same rush as a hot stock tip or the newest speculative trend everyone's talking about at a dinner party. But when researchers look at where sustainable wealth actually comes from, the answer over and over again is unglamorous, diversified, long-term positions held for decades, not months. Historical data on the broad U.S. stock market shows average annual returns in the range of 9 to 10% over long stretches of time, and that number is only unlocked by people who don't touch their money out of panic or excitement. Consider 2 investors who both start with the same amount of money. One checks their portfolio daily, panics during every downturn, and jumps between trends chasing whatever performed well last year. The other picks a diversified strategy and simply leaves it alone for 30 years. The math consistently favors the second investor, not because they're smarter, but because they removed emotion from the equation entirely. The wealthy aren't smarter stock pickers than everyone else on average. They're just far more patient, and patience compounds in a way that excitement never does. Rule 6. They buy assets, and they buy them in silence. There's a particular trap that catches people right when they start making real money for the first time, and it's the trap of visible success. New car, new watch, bigger house than they need because on some level it feels like proof that the hard work paid off. But actual wealthy families, the ones who've held on to money across decades, are notorious for the opposite. Many live in the same modest homes for years after they could afford mansions. They drive cars well past when a lease would have expired. Research on American millionaires has repeatedly found that a large share of them never received an inheritance at all, and instead built their wealth through consistent saving and investing while living well below what their income could technically support. There's a quiet psychological trick happening here too. Every dollar spent trying to look wealthy is a dollar that will never compound into actual wealth. The person driving the flashy car financed at 8% interest, and the person driving the modest paid-off car investing that same payment every month are not living the same financial life, even if they look similar from the outside for a year or two. 20 years later, the difference between them is enormous, and only one of them can see it coming. The lifestyle upgrade comes last, if it comes at all, and by then it barely matters because the asset base is already massive. And Rule 7, maybe the most important one, they never stop treating money as a tool for freedom, not a scoreboard for status. This is the mental shift that ties every other rule together. The moment money becomes about proving something to other people, the decisions start getting worse. You buy the house you can't quite afford because a neighbor bought one. You upgrade the car because your college friend just got a new one. You take on a vacation you can't afford because everyone online seems to be somewhere exotic. But wealthy families that last generations keep asking a different question every time money moves. Not, what will this make me look like, but what will this make possible? Time with family. The ability to walk away from a bad job without panicking about next month's rent. The freedom to take a real risk on a business idea because the foundation underneath is solid. The option to say no to work that drains you simply because you don't need the money badly enough to say yes. That's the actual finish line, not a number in an account. The ability to make choices without money being the reason you can't. So here's the honest truth sitting underneath all 7 of these rules. None of them require a 6-figure income to start. They require a decision made today to stop playing the same game everyone else is playing and start playing the long one. Someone earning an ordinary salary who pays themselves first, avoids consumer debt, and invests patiently for 30 years will, in almost every case, end up wealthier than someone earning triple that income who spends everything trying to look successful along the way. The math doesn't care about how much you make. It only cares about what you keep, what you protect, and what you refuse to touch. The families who are still wealthy generations from now aren't the ones who got the luckiest break. They're the ones who understood something the crowd never bothers to learn. That money isn't kept by accident. It's kept on purpose, one boring, disciplined, unglamorous decision at a time. The people at that hotel in Chicago in 1923 had all the money in the world and none of these rules. Don't make the same mistake they did.